Hi, this is Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we're making the Never Ending Flower Shawl. So to make the Never Ending Flower Shawl, I am going to be using these 9 colors of Natural Garden. It's a yarn from Ice Yarn. It is 40% bamboo, 35% cotton, and 25% linen. It's a really nice yarn to work with. I will be using a 3.75 millimeter hook, and you'll also need a pair of scissors and eventually a darning needle. So that is what you'll need. If you are not using Natural Garden like I am, you're welcome to use any yarn you have at home. You can use acrylic with a larger hook, maybe like a 6 millimeter hook with a size 4 chunky yarn, or natural cotton, which is a size 3 yarn. You could use like a 5 millimeter hook. It's up to you, whatever you have on hand, but this yarn is so delicious and perfect for summer, I couldn't resist it. So these are my colors. They are also linked on my website, secretyarnery.com, and then go to the yarn tab, scroll down, and there will be these colors right there that takes you over to Ice Yarns to get the same colors that I'm working on if you're interested in that. If not, use what you have on hand. It's also a great stash buster. Just try to keep your yarn thicknesses the same. You don't want to have like really thick yarn and a thin yarn. You want it to pretty much be the same thickness of yarn. So just a tip on sizing. There's 2 ways we're going to be doing the collar. One way is flat, so there's no petal across the top, and the other way is with the petal across the top. So petal, if you have a petal at the top, this is no increasing. This will just be a nice flat panel. So this is how we're going to do it all the way along the back. And along the front, there is no petal at the top. This is increasing. So we're going to be adding flowers for the front to give us a little bit of space and grace, ease of movement. So you're going to decide how many flowers are going to be going across your front with the increase. I have 3 with increases, so 3 flat ones or 3 flowers without petals coming up from the top. And across the back, I have 4 flowers with petals coming up at the top, so that is no increasing. So you're just going to decide you're going to make a front panel that fits across your front and then a back panel. So if you're extra chesty, this one on the side can also turn into an increase. If you are worried that it'll be too tight, this can also be done. It's nice to have it a bit snug because you do want the flowers to pull on each other so that they stay nice and flowery, not drapey, not like all clustered together. So that's how I like it. I like it nice and flat along the back with a little bit of extra space along the front and along the side. Totally up to you. And of course, Never Ending Flower Shawl, add as many flowers as you like. So let's start building our collar. I'm using this white to make all of the centers of my flowers just so they all look a bit the same. They're all different and unique, but they all start the same way. You're of course welcome to do any sort of color arrangement that you'd like. So we're just going to start by making a slip knot. So to make a slip knot, just hold the yarn over your non-dominant hand, and I just pin it down on my ring finger and wrap it around my top 2 fingers and poke it behind. You can make a slip knot any which way that is comfortable for you. Shrink it down and put it on your hook. Now we're going to chain 3. So just push your hook down onto your yarn, pull it up, turn it down, and bring it through. So that's your first chain. There's 2, and here is 3. So slip knot and a chain 3. Now we're going to count our chains. You don't count what's on your hook, and you don't count this little knot at the very beginning. We just count these V's in between. So there's 1, 2, and 3 chains. We're going to go straight into the first chain we made. It doesn't matter where you go in, just into that stitch. So just push your hook into that first stitch. And now take some time here. We want to get ourselves situated. So just pinch all of this down so you get a bit of a U shape underneath your hook. Just hold it open with your finger and your thumb. You want to keep track of the center. We're going to make a ring. So grab your yarn again and bring it through both loops on your hook, making sure you're still holding it open with your thumb and your finger. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Wrap your yarn and go right back in to that center where you're holding it open. Just push your hook right onto your finger, Make sure you get into the same spot, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So that is a double crochet. Wrap your yarn again, and we're going to make 10 more double crochets into the center of this ring. Our chain counts as a double crochet in this stitch, and we've done one already, so that will be a total of 12 double crochets. So wrap your yarn and go into the ring, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So now you can let go of your ring. It'll hold open because you've made some stitches right into the center. Wrap your yarn and now keep going so you have a total of 12 double crochets including your chain. And you want to be holding your tail alongside your work so that you can work over it as you go. So there is my 12 double crochets. I worked over my tail so we can just cut that off later. We don't have to sew it in. And now we're going to slip stitch to join. So we want to go to the top of this chain 3. So there is a tiny little V right down here at the bottom, so that counts as your first chain. So there's 1, 2, here is number 3 right there. Another way to do it is find your first double crochet, which is this post here, and just follow it up. That is your first double crochet. So we want to go into the stitch right beside it. It's this little guy right here. So that is the top of your chain 3, or the chain right beside your first real double crochet. With this one, we want to make sure we get 2 strands of that stitch on our hook for a nice join. Grab your yarn and bring it back, turn your hook and bring it through. So that's your slip stitch. Chain 1 to secure your yarn and cut your yarn. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. Give it a little stretch up, make sure it's lying nice and flat. If you worked over your tail, you can cut that off now so it just stays out of your way. These curved scissors are really handy because you can see you're not going to be cutting your work. There's a link for these in the description box below if you are interested. They're on Amazon, super great. So that's all ready to go. Now we're just going to work in this tail. So just into these back loops. I'm just going to be going right into the back loop of the next 5 stitches just to work it in so I don't have to sew so many ends later. Just push your hook into the back loop, grab your yarn and bring it through. Into the next stitch, just the back loop, grab your yarn and bring it through. So we're going to do this 5 times. We're just going to work it forward a bunch of times. Like that. Stretch it out. We don't want it to be too tight. So now we're going to skip a stitch, put your hook in from the underside. Grab your yarn and just flip it to the back. So now when we're working around, we can work over that tail twice, forward and backward, and we can just cut it off also. So there is our center done. You are welcome to do this whole shawl in stages. You could make all of your centers right now, and then when they're ready, go on to the next step. We looped our yarn back and forth on this one side through the back loops. So we want to turn it and work on the other side. We want to just join our yarn in a new area. And we're going to be working right in between our stitches. So not into the stitch, but in between the posts. So if you just pull them apart, we're going to be working into those nice big areas. So just push your hook in between 2 of those stitches, just into the very big space. Loop of your new yarn on your hook. Bring it through, slip stitch with both to join, and drop your tail. Just hold it along the top of your circle. We're going to be working over it, and chain 2, 1 and 2. If you joined your yarn in a different way, you will be doing a chain 3. Wrap your yarn and 1 double crochet into the very same space. Like that. And 2 double crochets into each one of these spaces all the way around. So keep going like this all the way around, 2 double crochets in between each stitch until you reach the beginning. So when you get all the way around, you'll have 12 pairs of double crochets, or 24 if you wanted to count each stitch. I just count this V at the bottom going in, and I just make sure that there's 2 V's poking in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Just make sure you have 12. Now we're going to slip stitch to the top of the chain 3. So we counted where we joined our yarn as our first chain. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And we're just going to go into that 3rd chain up. Just that one there. We want to get 2 loops of that stitch on our hook. So poke your hook in, 2 strands of that stitch on your hook. Nice tension. You want to do a nice tight slip stitch. Bring your yarn back, turn your hook, and bring your yarn through. Like that. There's your slip stitch. Chain 1 to secure your yarn, and cut your yarn. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down. And now we want to work in our tail again. So we're going to go about 6 stitches over, because I want to work over it in this space, and I want to work over it in the 2nd space. So it'll be really nice and worked in. So just through the back loops. Like that. And then the other way, just skipping every other stitch, just bringing it back and forth. So we've gone forward and reverse. We have 1 tail left we can just work in quickly. You can do this at the end, but I'll just show you now how to do it. Poke your needle in going opposite direction. Thread your needle. And pull it through. Like that. And now we can cut off that blue one as well. So round 2 is finished. Now we're not going to be working into the spaces between the pairs of double crochets. We're going to be working right into the center of them. So right into the middle of each of these V's. If you can see the V going into each stitch, we're going to be poking our hook straight into the center. So we're still working into spaces, but we're working into the space between the actual pair of double crochets, not in between each pair, not into the big space. We're going into the center of the V, or the center of the pair. So find out where you wove in your tails. I wove in mine on this side. So we'll just turn it around and find a pair of double crochets. Just poke your hook into the center of that pair. Loop of yarn on your hook. Leave a long enough tail this time. We're going to have to sew this one in. Bring it through and slip stitch with both to join. Now drop your tail and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Wrap your yarn twice and put your finger right on top of those strands of yarn. You want to be holding them on your hook, and go right back into where you joined your yarn. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Now you can let go of your hook. There's 2 loops of yarn on your hook. We're doing 3 treble crochets together. That was our first one. So wrap your yarn twice again. Finger on your strands of yarn so they don't spin out of control. Into the same spot, grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. So 3 loops on your hook. We're going to do that one more time. So wrap your yarn twice, finger on your loops, hook into the same spot, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So there's 4 loops on our hook. We're going to finish these trebles together. So wrap your yarn, turn your hook facing down, and slide it through all 4 loops. Chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Wrap your yarn twice, and now I'm holding even my chain on my hook because everything will be sliding now. So I have everything held on my hook with my finger. And we're going to jump over to the center of the next pair. So right in the middle of that pair of double crochets, we're going to do the same thing. So start a treble crochet, leave it on your hook, start your second treble crochet, leave it on your hook, start your third treble crochet, leave it on your hook. So now there's again 4 loops on my hook. Wrap your yarn and take off all 4 loops. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and now we're going to pin that down. So this is going to finish our petal. So into the very same spot, 1 little slip stitch. Jump over to your center of the next pair. So right into the middle of the next pair of double crochets. Slip stitch to join. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. So a chain 3 starts your petal and a chain 3 finishes your petal. So now we're going to do 3 treble crochets together. So wrap your yarn twice, finger on your loops, and 3 treble crochets without finishing them. Chain 6, hold the chain on your hook, wrap your yarn twice, hold all your loops now on your hook with your finger, jump over to the center of the next pair of double crochets, hook right in the center, and do another 3 treble crochets together. So start 3 treble crochets without finishing them. There's number 2. Here is number 3. 4 loops on my hook. Wrap your yarn and take off all 4 loops. Chain 3 to finish your petal and slip stitch into the same space. Jump over to the center of the next pair of double crochets, slip stitch to join your yarn, and chain 3 to start your petal. And now keep doing that all the way around until you have 6 petals. So there is my 6 petals, and I have just slip stitched down, but we also want to join to our next petal over. So where I'm going to slip stitch is just into where we joined our yarn, just the center of that V. I'm just going to poke my hook straight into that very spot, and I'm going to slip stitch. I just want to make sure I have more than 1 strand of yarn on my hook. You don't want to slip stitch to 1 strand. It'll look kind of like all pulled apart and weak. So just poke your hook in, just make sure you have more than 1. I have a whole chunk. And bring your yarn back and through. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn. Now here you want to leave a long enough tail. We have to sew this completely in with a needle. So don't cut a short tail because it'll be stressful, or for me at least it's stressful. So pick the flower you want to make to join on to make the front collar of your shawl, and get 2.5 petals done. it will look like this. So 2 petals complete, and then your third petal started with a chain 3. That's how we are going to do it. All your joining petals or all your joining flowers are going to start like this. So just pop your first flower, your completed flower, a little bit on top of where you're working. And we're just going to put our hook straight down into one of those spaces. So just down into one of the petal spaces and slip stitch to join. We want to do a small slip stitch, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and lay them back down again. Now we're going to finish our petal here. So into the center of the next pair, we're just going to finish off that petal. Slip stitch into the center of the next pair to start your next petal and get halfway done your next petal. Chain 3. Now get everything laying nicely and make sure that your flowers are facing the right way around. You want them both facing up and not twisted around. This part is a bit particular. So now into the very next petal. Each flower is going to be touching 2 petals. So these 2 petals are going to be touching. Slip stitch to join, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and now finish this flower. Just let this other flower hang, just ignore it completely. It feels a bit weird, but just ignore it and finish up this flower. So your first 2 petals are joined. If you are going to be not making a shawl, if you're just watching this tutorial and you're going to make like a curtain valance or a bedspread, you're going to keep joining like 2 together with these 2 loose petals at the top, like a grid. But because we are doing the front of a shawl, we're going to be joining this way because this gives us an increase along the front, which compensates for the extra grace we need on the front of our female bodies. So we're going to be joining into these 2 petals of these flowers. Figure that out first. It has to be flat along your neck on the front of your body. So this is flat. We're going into the very next petal. But because we're crocheting, we have to start in the one before that. So figure out how it's going to be flat. You want that one pulled to the side and join to the one before it. So I've got my next flower ready, 2 petals finished and halfway done my third with my chain 3. Hook down into the second petal before it's flat along the top. So just hook down into that space. And now we're just going to join it the same way. So slip stitch and chain 3. And finish off this petal and start the next petal. So there's our petal with our chain 3. And we're going to slip stitch into the next petal over. So just into the space, little slip stitch, chain 3, and finish off this flower. There we have it. These 3 are connected. And it will look like that along the front of your neck. So depending on the yarn you are using, your hook size, your tension will be how many flowers you need to reach across the front of your body. So this is just underneath your neckline, kind of shoulder to shoulder, not the whole way. Obviously my body is not 11 inches like this looks to be, but this is just the front of your body. So this way is increases. If you are particularly chesty, you will be making more of these flat joins. That'll give your shawl more flowers in the front area across the front of your body. So that'll give you like a larger size, more of a flare. So now we're just going to be building along the back side. So get your next flower ready and put the flower you're joining to up above. 2.5 petals of the flower you're joining finished. The next petal we're going to join the same way. This red flower is along my collar in the front of my body, so I want this to be flat. So I'm going to join straight into this first petal. That'll give us extra space along the front of our body. So a little tiny slip stitch any which way and chain 3. Now finish this petal and start the second. Like that. Make sure everything's laying flat and you have your pretty sides facing up. And slip stitch to the next petal. Chain 3. And finish your flower. Now to remember what flower you're making for the front, it's always a good idea to just toss in a stitch marker. So just put a stitch marker on the flower that is going to be the dead center of your shawl, just so we can keep track of it. This is all going to be joined flat, and the back is going to be joined like stars, like this. So now get your next flower ready, 2.5 petals complete. Turn your work up so the flower we're joining to is above. And this is going to be around our back. We want it just to be laying nice and flat, no extra give, no increases. So we're going to be leaving a top petal and bottom petal empty. This is also how we're going to be joining if you're making like a bedspread or something else like that. Something that's going to be laying flat, this is how you'll be joining. So get your next flower ready, 2.5 petals complete. Chain 3 is finished, and slip stitch just down into that petal. Chain 3, and make sure everything's facing the pretty side up, and finish your petal and start the next. Slip stitch down into the next petal. So every flower, 2 petals of every flower is touching its neighbor. Chain 3, and now finish off this flower. So our front section, nice and flat, or it will be once we join over here, and our back section has these nice petals sticking up, so we're joining like stars. So now keep going, building your back row as long as you need it to fit around your body. So the ones across the front, just side to side, not around the shoulders. Across the back, a little over the edge. So just hold it across your body. It has to be bigger than your head and smaller than your shoulders. So I have my 3 for my front, and I have 3 so far for my back. I need a 4th one. I'm going to join the same way, but I'm going to be joining both of these together. So it'll be like that. So what you need to do now is do 1.5 petals. So get the flower you're joining to first, and this is the front. We have our stitch marker, so I'm going to be joining it flat. So to this petal here, so these 2. Remember, every flower touches 2 petals of its neighbor. So 1.5 petals done, and join this flower. These 2 are joined. Because this flower is along my back side, I do not want an increase on it. I am going to put 1 petal pointing straight up, like these ones are. We're going to join flat. So 1 petal without joining. There's my 1 petal without any joins, and start your second. And this one is also along the back, so remember to leave an empty petal where you do not want increases, and make it flat where you want increases. So I'm going to join straight to this petal right here. Make sure everything is facing up. There's no twists on your flowers. Everything is pretty side up. And join this flower and finish it off. There is our join. So we have 3 flat ones without any petals on the top, and I have 4 straight ones with a star-shaped join. So the star-shaped join is how you're going to join if you want to do something else, like a bedspread or a curtain valance or curtains or anything like that. This will be nice and just flat. And if you join like this, it'll be like a circle and you'll be increasing. So this will give you some flair. So just decide what you need for your body. It has to be bigger than your head and increases where you need increases. Wherever you're super curvy, you can feel free to put in some flat ones like this. This will give you a flare, like a semicircle, like a skirt. And these flat ones will be flat, like a bedspread. So the back of our body, for me, bedspread. The front of my body, skirt. So that's the difference, and just make as many flowers to fit around your body, around your shoulders. So smaller than your shoulders, bigger than your head. So now we're ready to start joining our second row of flowers. And what you want to kind of do is make sure you like the colors around the front of your shawl. You won't really notice obviously what you put on the sides and the back, but the front you'll look at quite a bit. So be a bit mindful and pick colors and flowers that you really like. So the first flower I'm going to join is right here in between these 2. We're going to put one underneath and we're going to put one in between. So underneath, in between, underneath, in between. So I'm going to start with in between. And I'm starting right by the middle, by the center, so I'm picking my colors that I like. And 2 petals of each flower are going to be touching each other. So these 2 petals are going to be touching this flower, and 2 petals are going to be touching these 2 petals of the yellow flower. So we're going to start joining to this petal here. Put your hook down into the petal. This is just the normal join, and slip stitch, chain 3. And finish your petal. Start the next petal. And now I'm going to be joining to both of these petals at the same time with the same join. So I'm just going to go into the first side and out through the second side and slip stitch, chain 3, and finish your petal. Start your next petal. Now you might notice that I kept going forward. I didn't stop and stare at it right away because it'll always look weird. Just work ahead a little bit and then go take a look, but that looks fine to me. And we're going to join to the second petal of the yellow flower. It's always 2 and 2. So this is the number 2 of the yellow, just a regular slip stitch, any which way you can, and finish up that petal. So the one in between we joined on with 3 petals, 3 joins. So now finish up this flower. So here's the flower we joined. We joined 3 petals to 4 petals of the row above. And now we're going to join underneath. So we're still going to be joining 3 petals. We're going to be joining 2 petals of this orangey flower and 2 petals of the yellow flower. Always 2 and 2. 2 petals are touching, always. So we're going to start with this petal right here. So just a regular slip stitch and chain 3. Finish your petal and get your next petal half started, including your chain 3. And now we're going to join to these 2 petals at the same time. So use some tension. You want to have a nice tight slip stitch, so be a little bit pulling on your yarn. Into the first side of the join and out the other, so you have both the petals on your hook, and 1 little tiny slip stitch, chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and finish that petal. Start your next petal and into the second petal of the yellow flower, or whatever color your flower is, little tiny slip stitch, chain 3, and finish your petal. And finish your flower. So we've joined 2 flowers, 1 in the middle, 1 underneath. Middle, underneath. Now we're going to put 1 in the middle. This one we're going to be joining to 3 flowers. So we're going to be joining 2 petals to blue, 2 petals to yellow, 2 petals to pink. So 1, 2, 3, 4 joins for the next flower. So pick which color you'd like to do next. I've done 2 petals. I'm halfway on my 3rd, including my chain 3. So into the first petal, little slip stitch, chain 3, finish your petal and start the next. So I've done 1 join, started my next petal, halfway done with my chain 3. So into the first side of that join and out the next. So I technically have both of those petals on my hook. And a little tiny slip stitch and a chain 3. 1, 2, 3. You want to use some tension. You don't want a lot of yarn. You don't want a big like loose join. You want a nice tight join. And finish your petal and start the next. So now we've done 2 joins, started my next petal including my chain 3. So into the first half of that join and out the second. So 2 petals on my hook and little tiny slip stitch and a little tiny chain 3, and finish your petal and start the next. So I've joined twice to the blue, twice to the yellow, once to the pink, so I need my second one over to this pink. So that's just a regular little slip stitch, any which way you can, chain 3, and finish off this petal and the flower. So now we've joined 3 flowers, and every flower is touching its neighbor with 2 petals. There's 2 connections to every flower. So now we're just going to keep going around, one underneath, one in the middle, one underneath, one in the middle, all the way around. So that was my last flower of round 2. So get your stitch markers and let's go try it on. So now go ahead and start joining your 3rd row. The only thing we're going to do this time around is we're not joining underneath our center flower. So underneath the center, that's where we're going to start the opening of our shawl. So start on one side and work all the way around, adding one more row until you get back to this side. So we finished the row across the back. That is all finished now. But if you try it on and look from the side, this flower at the bottom is really low, and then the back is empty again. So now just kind of keep putting it on and filling in. I'm going to put one more row just across the back between these 2 flowers to even it out. So the bottom row is finished, and if you look on the side, you can see it has an arch starting here, and the front still looks the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep building my back longer and longer until I'm happy with it, maybe 1 or 2 more rows, and then I will start building along the side until I'm happy with the sides. So that is how you do it. That's how you add to your never-ending flower shawl. It's never ending. So let's keep going. So add 1 more row all the way along the edge of your never-ending flower shawl, and as many rows along the back as you like. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We upload videos almost every weekday, podcast on Wednesdays, live chat on Fridays. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Secret Yarnery, or Facebook, The Secret Yarnery, or join our Facebook group where you can upload your photos. I'd love to see your never-ending flower shawl, The Secret Yarnery Crochet Community. So have a super great day and stay hooked.